The great hall of the Galactic Harmony Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 12 different star systems sat in their special chairs, breathing different gases and adjusting to the artificial gravity that kept them all comfortable. Today was different from their usual peaceful meetings. Today, they were scared. Ambassador Xylin of the Ethereal Collective stood at the center of the room. Her body looked like living crystal, catching the light and throwing rainbow patterns on the walls, but today, those crystals shook with fear. She had called this emergency meeting because their worst nightmare was coming true. "Fellow beings of peace," she began, her voice making musical sounds that the translation devices turned into words. "The HFY Empire grows stronger every day. They have taken 15 worlds in the last 6 months. Our traditional methods are not working." Around the room, other representatives shifted uncomfortably. The Valdorians, who looked like giant flowers with faces, released calming scents. The gentle current delegation, butterfly-like creatures with wings that sparkled, fluttered nervously. The rock people of Titan's Rest, slow and steady in all things, made deep rumbling sounds of worry. Dr. Katar, the council's chief scientist, activated a holographic display. Images filled the air above their heads, burning cities, ships destroyed in space, refugees running from smoking ruins. The HFY were not like the council species. They were big, aggressive, and covered in natural armor. They believed that might made right, and they had a lot of might. "The HFY do not respond to our peace offers," Dr. Katar explained, his 6 arms moving as he spoke. "They destroy our diplomatic ships before we can even talk. They use civilians as shields. They poison entire planets to make them surrender faster." The room fell silent, except for the hum of life support systems. These species had known peace for thousands of years. War was something they read about in ancient history books. They sent peacekeepers who carried medical supplies and communication devices, not weapons. Their soldiers were really more like social workers with uniforms. "What about the Harmony Guard?" asked Representative Volmond of the Core Worlds. "Surely our peacekeepers can find a solution." Xylin's crystalline form darkened. "The Harmony Guard lost 3 entire fleets last month. The HFY do not fight with honor. They do not follow the old rules. They shoot first and never ask questions." She activated another display. The faces of the missing peacekeepers appeared in the air. Young beings from worlds where the biggest danger was usually bad weather or mild disagreements between neighbors. They had gone to make peace and never came home. "The HFY captured Commander Thelis," Xylin continued. "They sent us a recording. He begged them to follow the Galactic Convention on Treatment of Prisoners. They laughed at him. Then they ... She could not finish the sentence. The silence stretched on. These beings had created a galaxy where different species worked together, where conflicts were solved with words and compromise. They had built something beautiful. Now they watched it being torn apart by creatures who saw kindness as weakness. "There must be someone who can help," whispered Representative Yithara of the Spiral Arm colonies. Her people were small and furry, evolved from creatures that hid from predators on their peaceful homeworld. "Someone who understands how to deal with such aggression." Dr. Katar pulled up a star chart. "There is one possibility. A new species that just discovered faster than light travel 50 years ago. They call themselves humans, and they come from the 3rd planet of a system they call Sol." The chart zoomed in on a small yellow star at the edge of what most considered civilized space. The planet appeared on screen, blue and white and green, looking peaceful enough. "What do we know about them?" asked Xylin. "Not much," Dr. Katar admitted. "They seem to advance very quickly, much faster than most species. They went from simple agriculture to space travel in only a few thousand years. Most species take 10 times longer. Their planet appears to be moderately challenging to live on." Representative Volmond leaned forward, challenging how? "Well, they have significant weather variations, some natural disasters, multiple different environments. Their gravity is a bit higher than standard. Nothing too extreme by galactic standards, but they show unusual adaptability. That could be promising, Xylan said hopefully. Adaptable. Species often make good peacekeepers. They can understand different points of view. Dr. Kaitar brought up more data. They have something they call military history. Our cultural analysts are not sure what this means, but it seems to be important to them. They also have multiple competing governments on their single planet, which is unusual but suggests experience with conflict resolution. Military history might mean they understand strategy, suggested Representative Yuthara. Perhaps they could advise our Harmony Guard on new approaches. Around the room, hope began to replace despair. Here was a new species, fresh and energetic. That might bring new ideas to their ancient problems. They imagined helpful advisors who could teach their peacekeepers better ways to negotiate with difficult species like the Kefir. I say we contact them immediately, declared Volmund. Offer them full membership in the Council in exchange for peacekeeping assistance. The vote was unanimous. These desperate species reached out across space to the newcomers, hoping for salvation. Dr. Kaitar composed the message using standard diplomatic language. To the governing bodies of the species known as humans, inhabitants of Sol 3, the Galactic Harmony Council faces an urgent crisis requiring peacekeeping intervention. We formally request assistance in resolving conflicts with an aggressive species, threatening multiple star systems. We offer full diplomatic recognition, council membership, and standard compensation for successful conflict resolution. Please respond at your earliest convenience. The message was sent through the quantum communication network, traveling faster than light to reach the small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy. The council representatives went home to their families, hopeful that help was coming from there. New friends, they had no idea what they had just awakened. On Earth, military leaders read the message and smiled. After centuries of keeping peace on their own violent world, they finally had somewhere else to export their expertise. The Second Expeditionary Force began preparing for deployment. The response came back quickly. Peacekeeping request acknowledged and accepted. Second Expeditionary Force deploying to your coordinates. Estimated arrival, 6 standard cycles. Stand by for operational assessment. The Council celebrated, thinking they had found gentle helpers like themselves. They did not know they had just invited predators from a world where evolution's cruelest lessons had created the most dangerous peacekeepers in the galaxy. 6 cycles later, the massive Harmony Station detected incoming ships at the edge of their sensor range. Ambassador Zealin hurried to the observation deck with other council representatives, excited to meet their new allies. The station's AI announced the arrival in its usual calm voice. Incoming vessels identify as Human Expeditionary Force. Configuration unknown. Requesting docking permissions. Dr. Kaitar studied his instruments with growing confusion. These readings are strange. The ships appear to be much more dense than normal, and they are not responding to our standard greeting protocols. Representative Volmund pressed his face against the viewing window. I can see them now. They look different. The human ships came into view, and the council representatives fell silent. Where they expected to see the graceful curved designs common to peaceful species, they saw angular vessels that looked like weapons themselves. The ships were dark gray and covered with things that might have been armor plating. They moved in precise formations that spoke of military discipline. Why do their ships look so ... Representative Yuthara struggled to find the word. So aggressive? Before anyone could answer, the docking bay doors opened. The council delegation had prepared a welcoming ceremony with traditional music, ceremonial foods from 12 worlds, and gifts that represented the finest art their civilizations had created. They wore their best diplomatic robes and had practiced the greeting rituals for days. What emerged from the human transport made them forget all their preparations. The humans wore what looked like armor. Not ceremonial dress armor like some species, used for formal occasions, but real, functional protection that suggested they expected someone to shoot at them. Their faces were hidden behind transparent shields, and they carried equipment that the station sensors could not identify. At the front walked a human female who identified herself as Commander Sarah Chun. She was shorter than most council species but moved with a confidence that made her seem larger. Behind her came 200 more humans, all wearing the same armor-like suits, all moving with the same precise coordination. "Welcome to Harmony Station," Ambassador Xylin said, beginning the traditional greeting. Her crystalline body started to resonate with calming harmonics, a sound that promoted peace and friendship among all known species. Several humans immediately reached for their sides, their hands moving to weapons that were not there. Commander Chun raised her hand, and the humans stopped moving, but they remained alert in a way that made the council representatives nervous. "Is there a problem?" Dr. Kaitar asked, concerned. "No problem," Commander Chen replied through her translation device. "My people are trained to stay alert in unfamiliar environments. The harmonic greeting triggered our defensive protocols. We will adapt." The Valdorian representative tried next, releasing welcoming pheromones that usually Valdorian representative tried next, releasing welcoming pheromones that usually made visitors feel calm and happy. The humans' response was even more alarming. They immediately sealed their breathing systems and activated some kind of filtration equipment. "Chemical attack protocols initiated," one of the humans reported to Commander Chun. "Stand down," she ordered. "It appears to be a cultural greeting." She turned to the confused Valdorian. "We appreciate the gesture, but my people treat unknown chemical agents as potential threats. It is nothing personal." Dr. Kitar studied the humans with scientific interest. His instruments showed elevated stress hormones, increased heart rates, and brain activity that suggested constant threat assessment. "Commander Chun, are your people feeling unwell? Our medical staff can assist if needed." Commander Chun removed her helmet, revealing a face that looked pleasant enough but had eyes that never stopped moving, never stopped watching. "Doctor, we feel fine." "This is normal for us." "Normal?" Representative Yithara squeaked. "You seem so tense." "Doctor," Commander Chun said patiently, "we are the peaceful ones. We are the humans who chose diplomacy over warfare as our career path." The statement created a silence that lasted too long. The council representatives exchanged glances, trying to process what they had just heard. If these were the peaceful humans, what were the others like? The formal briefing took place in the station's main conference room. The council had prepared detailed presentations about their culture, their methods of conflict resolution, and their hopes for peaceful cooperation. They had created comfortable seating for their human guests and provided refreshments from across the galaxy. The humans listened politely to the presentations about cultural sensitivity, environmental accommodation, and protocols for minimizing psychological trauma to peacekeeping forces. Commander Chun took notes on a device that looked disturbingly like it could be used as a weapon if needed. When the presentations ended, Commander Chun asked a single question: "What are our rules of engagement?" The innocent phrase caused 6 hours of confusion. The council representatives had never heard the term before. Dr. Kitar's translation systems struggled to find equivalent concepts in their languages. When the meaning became clear, the room filled with uncomfortable silence. "Rules of engagement refer to when and how we are permitted to use force," Commander Chun explained. "What level of violence are we authorized to employ? When can we fire weapons? What constitutes acceptable collateral damage? Who has authority to escalate response levels? Ambassador Zalin's crystalline form began to dim. Commander, we do not use violence. We are peacekeepers. We resolve conflicts through negotiation and understanding. I understand, Commander Chun replied. But the HFY have shown they do not respond to negotiation. They destroy diplomatic vessels and ignore peace offers. What do we do when talking? Fails? The question hung in the air like a dangerous gas. The council species had built their entire civilization on the assumption that talking never failed. There was always a way to find common ground, always a compromise that satisfied everyone. Representative Volmend spoke carefully. Perhaps you could show them the error of their ways? Demonstrate the benefits of peaceful cooperation? Sir, Commander Chun said, according to your own reports, the HFY have killed millions of civilians, enslaved entire populations, and destroyed 3 diplomatic vessels. They respond to mercy with increased aggression. How exactly do you suggest? We demonstrate the benefits of peace to beings who see kindness as weakness. Dr. Kaitar activated his displays again, showing the devastation the HFY had caused. Commander, surely there must be a way to reach them without resorting to violence. Commander Chun finished. Doctor, sometimes the only way to stop a predator is to become a bigger predator. Sometimes the only language a bully understands is force. The humans had been on the station for less than 1 day, and already the council representatives felt their worldview shifting. These newcomers spoke casually about concepts that made the council species physically uncomfortable. They talked about violence the way others discussed weather patterns. Commander, Ambassador Zylin said quietly, what exactly does your species consider acceptable peacekeeping methods? Commander Chun looked around the room at the gentle beings who had called for help. Ambassador, we have a saying on Earth, peace through strength. We have learned that the best way to protect innocent life is to be more dangerous than those who would threaten it. She activated her own display, showing images from Earth's history, battles, wars, conflicts spanning millennia. We have spent 10,000 years learning how to fight. We have become very good at it. But we have also learned when to fight, and more importantly, when to stop fighting. The council representatives stared at the images in horror and fascination. This species had more military history than most civilizations had total history. We understand you prefer peaceful solutions, Commander Chun continued. So do we. But when peaceful solutions fail, we know what comes next. The question is, do you want us to save your people, or do you want us to follow protocols that have already failed? The room fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. The council had called for peacekeepers. They had received something far more dangerous and possibly far more effective than anything they had imagined. Outside the conference room, human soldiers continued their preparations, checking equipment and reviewing tactical data. They had come to keep the peace. They would do so in the only way they knew how. 3 days after the meeting at Harmony Station, the human fleet moved toward the Kepler 442 system, where the HFY had been attacking refugee ships. Flight Commander Theises of the Gentle Current had been assigned as the official liaison to the humans. She was beginning to regret this assignment. The human ships moved through space in ways that made her nervous. Where council vessels traveled in open formations that showed peaceful intent, the humans used something they called tactical spacing. Their ships stayed far enough apart that a single attack could not destroy them all, but close enough to support each other if fighting started. Commander Santos, Theises said, speaking to the captain of the lead human vessel, your formation suggests you expect to be attacked. Surely the HFY will recognize that we come in peace. Captain Maria Santos looked at the butterfly-like alien with patient eyes. Flight Commander, the HFY have attacked every peaceful vessel that entered this system for the last 6 months. Why would they treat us differently? Because we are here to help resolve the conflict, Thyses replied. When they see that, we mean no harm, they will surely want to talk. Santos pulled up a holographic display showing recent HFY activities. Images of destroyed refugee ships filled the space between them. Bodies floating in vacuum. Children who would never see their families again. Flight Commander, look at these images. Does this look like the work of beings who care about peaceful intentions? Thyses turned away from the display. Her people had evolved to see beauty in all things, to find harmony even in chaos. These images hurt her in ways she could not explain. There must be some misunderstanding. Perhaps they feel threatened. Perhaps they attack because they fear us. Maybe, Santos agreed. But my job is to protect innocent lives. I cannot do that by assuming the best about enemies who have shown us their worst. The human approach to reconnaissance shocked Thyses even more than their defensive formations. Instead of broadcasting their peaceful intentions, they sent invisible ships ahead to watch and gather information. These scout vessels used technology that made them nearly impossible to detect. Is this not dishonest? Thyses asked. Should we not announce ourselves and request permission to observe? Flight Commander, Santos explained, every time your people announce themselves, the HFY destroyed their ships. We prefer to gather information without giving away our position. The scouts returned with troubling news. A HFY raiding fleet was moving toward a convoy of refugee ships from the Spiral Arm colonies. 300,000 civilians were fleeing a planet the HFY had poisoned, and they had nowhere to run. We must interpose ourselves between the raiders and the refugees, Thyses declared. Show them that we will not allow this attack to proceed. Santos studied the tactical display. Flight Commander, the HFY fleet has 40 ships. They have already demonstrated that they will fire on vessels trying to protect civilians. If we simply get in their way, they will destroy us and then attack the refugees anyway. Then what do you suggest? Thyses asked. We stop them, Santos said simply. The engagement began when the HFY fleet detected the refugee convoy. War Chieftain Graxov commanded the raiders from his flagship, a massive vessel covered in weapons and armor. He had been attacking weak council ships for months, and this would be another easy victory. Unknown vessels approaching, his sensor operator reported. They do not match council configurations. Graxov studied the scanner readings. The approaching ships were smaller than his but moved with purpose, probably more peacekeepers. Signal our intention to claim the refugees as slaves. They will withdraw as they always do. But the human ships did not withdraw. They did not broadcast surrender offers or request negotiation. Instead, they did something the HFY had never experienced in this conflict. They opened fire. The first human salvo disabled 3 HFY ships in seconds. The weapons struck with precision that suggested intimate knowledge of HFY ship design. Power systems failed, weapon arrays went dark, life support systems struggled to maintain pressure. What is happening? Graxov demanded. Who are these beings? His question received an answer when Captain Santa's voice filled the communication. Channels, HFY vessels. This is Captain Santos of the Human Expeditionary Force. You are attacking civilian refugees in violation of galactic law. Cease your attack immediately or face the consequences. Graxov laughed. Another species that thinks words will stop us. All ships, attack formation. Show these newcomers what happens to those who interfere with HFY business. The battle that followed lasted exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds. Thyses watched from the observation deck of Santa's ship, her wings trembling as she witnessed something no council species had seen in living memory, a one-sided space battle. The humans did not fight with honor or ritual. They fought with cold efficiency that spoke of long experience with violence. Their weapons found weak points in HFY armor. Their movements avoided incoming fire with precision that seemed impossible. They worked together like parts of a Single organism, each ship supporting the others in ways that created overwhelming tactical advantage. When the shooting stopped, the HFY fleet floated helpless in space. Not destroyed, but completely disabled. Every weapon system had been carefully targeted and eliminated. Life support systems had been damaged just enough to force surrender without causing unnecessary deaths. How? Vices whispered. How did you do that so quickly? Santos checked her instruments with professional calm. Flight Commander, my species has been fighting wars for 10,000 years. We have learned to be very good at it. The aftermath disturbed Vices even more than the battle itself. The humans systematically boarded the disabled HFY ships, their soldiers moving with the same cold efficiency their vessels had shown. They extracted prisoners, gathered intelligence, and treated wounded enemies with medical care that somehow seemed more frightening than cruelty would have been. Why do you help them? Vices asked, watching human medics work on injured HFY warriors. They came here to kill civilians. Because that is what civilized beings do, Santos replied. We fight when we must, but we do not murder helpless enemies. The goal is to stop the aggression, not to become monsters ourselves. War Chieftain Graxov found himself in the human ship's medical bay, his injuries being treated by creatures he had intended to destroy. A human doctor worked on his damaged arm with skilled hands, while armed guards watched nearby. Why do you not kill me? Graxov asked. I would have shown no mercy to your wounded. The human doctor looked up from her work. Because we are not you. We fight to protect life, not to destroy it. You are no longer a threat, so you are now a patient. The concept confused Graxov. In HFY culture, mercy was weakness. Enemies were killed or enslaved, never healed. I do not understand your people. You will, the doctor said. We have time to teach you. Back on the bridge, Thysis struggled to process what she had witnessed. Captain Santos, your people saved more lives in 4 minutes than the Council managed in 4 months. But I think I am beginning to understand something that frightens me. What is that, Flight Commander? Thysis looked out at the rescued refugee convoy. 300,000 beings who would live because humans had been willing to fight for them. I think I understand why your world produced beings like you. And I think I understand why the universe might need such beings. Santos nodded. Flight Commander, peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is what happens when good people are willing to fight for it. The news of the human victory spread quickly through both the Council and the HFY Empire. The aliens. Reactions could not have been more different. The Council celebrated, but worried about the implications of their new allies' capabilities. The HFY, meanwhile, prepared for a war unlike any they had ever fought. War Emperor Vashtar received the reports with growing anger. These humans had humiliated his finest warriors without suffering a single casualty. This could not be allowed to stand. It was time to show the galaxy what happened to those who interfered with HFY expansion. He began mobilizing the 3rd Battle Fleet, 200 ships and 50,000 warriors. This would not be a raid or a simple conquest. This would be a punishment that the galaxy would remember for generations. The humans, meanwhile, prepared for what they knew would come next. Captain Santos reviewed intelligence reports and tactical assessments while Flight Commander Thysis watched nervously. They will send everything they have, Santos predicted. This War Emperor will see our victory as a personal insult. He will want to make an example of us. Can you stop such a large fleet? Thysis asked. Santos smiled, and for the first time, Thysis understood why the humans might be more dangerous than the HFY. Flight Commander, we have been preparing for this kind of fight since before we left our home world. The HFY are about to learn why Earth is classified as a death world. Word of the human victory reached every corner of the galaxy within days. The reactions were as different as the species themselves. On peaceful Council worlds, being celebrated in their quiet ways while worrying about what it meant to have such dangerous allies. In the Kethver Empire, War Emperor Vashtar raged in his throne room, breaking ancient artifacts and terrorizing his advisors. Impossible! Vashtar roared, his massive form towering over the trembling messenger. War Chieftain. Graxoff commanded 40 ships. How could unknown aliens defeat him so easily? The messenger, a smaller Kethver with scars from many battles, kept his eyes on the floor. Great Emperor, the humans used weapons and tactics we have never seen. They disabled our ships without destroying them. They fought like they knew exactly what we would do before we did it. Vashtar's clawed hand crushed the metal armrest of his throne. No species fights better than the Kethver. We have conquered 60 worlds. We are the greatest warriors in the galaxy. But even as he spoke, doubt crept into his mind. The Kethver had built their empire by attacking species that fought with honor codes and ritual combat. They overwhelmed enemies through superior numbers and ruthless tactics. They had never faced opponents who fought back with equal ruthlessness and superior skill. Meanwhile, at Harmony Station, Dr. Kitar worked frantically to understand what the humans had brought to their galaxy. His research into human history revealed things that made his 6 arms shake with nervous energy. "Ambassador Zaylin," he called out as she passed his laboratory, "you must see this. I have been studying the humans' background. Their planet, their evolution. It explains everything." Zaylin entered the lab where holographic displays showed images from Earth's past. Battles involving millions of warriors. Cities destroyed by weapons that could level mountains. Wars that lasted decades and consumed entire continents. Their most recent major conflict involved over 70 million casualties. Dr. Kitar explained, his voice filled with amazement and horror. "They call it one of their smaller wars. Ambassador, their entire species appears to have evolved in a state of constant warfare." The displays showed more images. Humans fighting in frozen wastelands, steaming jungles, burning deserts, and underwater. They had developed weapons for every environment their world could provide, and some it could not. "Look at this," Dr. Kitar continued, pulling up more data. "They have military academies that are thousands of years old. They study warfare the way we study art or music. They have written books about strategy and tactics that span their entire recorded history." Zaylin stared at an image of human soldiers training in what looked like deliberately created hardship. "Dr. Kitar, what kind of world creates beings like this?" "A world that kills anything that cannot fight back," he replied. "Their planet has predators that hunt in coordinated packs, weather systems that can destroy cities, diseases that can wipe out populations, natural disasters that reshape continents. Everything on their world either learns to fight or dies." The implications were staggering. The Council had spent millennia creating a peaceful galaxy where conflicts were resolved through discussion and compromise. They had invited beings from a world where peace was something you fought for, not something you simply enjoyed. Back in the Kethver Empire, War Emperor Vashtar made his decision. The humans had embarrassed him in front of the entire galaxy. This insult could not stand. He would personally lead the 3rd Battle Fleet to destroy these newcomers and show the galaxy that the Kethver were still the masters of war. "Prepare every ship," he commanded his admirals. "Summon every warrior. We will bring such force against these humans that their destruction will be remembered for 1,000 years." Admiral Krakathan, oldest and most experienced of the Kethver commanders, dared to speak. "Great Emperor, perhaps we should study these humans more carefully. Learn their weaknesses before committing our entire fleet." Vashtar's roar echoed through the command center. "Weaknesses? They are a tiny force from an unknown world. We have 200 ships and 50,000 of our finest warriors. What could they possibly do against such might?" The third battle. Fleet assembled over the HFY homeworld, a sight that had terrified dozens of species over the centuries. Massive warships bristling with weapons. Troop transports carrying armies that had never known defeat. Support vessels loaded with the tools of conquest and subjugation. The fleet moved toward human positions with the confidence born of countless victories. They had crushed every enemy they had ever faced. These humans would be no different, but the humans were doing something the HFY had never experienced. Instead of waiting to be attacked, they were hunting. Captain Santa stood on the bridge of her ship, studying tactical displays with her staff. The HFY fleet was large and powerful, but it moved in predictable patterns. They had grown overconfident from fighting enemies who always reacted the same way. Their formation assumes, "We will either run away or meet them head-on," Santos observed. They have never fought an enemy that might do something unexpected. Commander Chun, who had joined the fleet from Harmony Station, reviewed the intelligence data. Their ships are powerful but not well coordinated. They rely on individual strength rather than teamwork. Classic mistake of a species that has never faced real opposition. Lieutenant Park, the youngest officer on the bridge, looked worried. "Captain, they outnumber us 10-1. Even with our advantages, can we really win against such odds?" Santos smiled, and her expression carried the confidence of a species that had fought impossible battles and survived. "Lieutenant, humans have been outnumbered before. We have learned that numbers are not everything in warfare. Strategy, tactics, and the willingness to do what your enemy does not expect can overcome any numerical advantage." The humans had learned something in 10,000 years of warfare that the HFY had never needed to know: how to fight a larger, stronger enemy and win. The human fleet moved to intercept the HFY, but not where the enemy expected them. While Vashtar's ships headed for the last known human position, the humans used their stealth technology and superior speed to circle around behind them. "Where are they?" Vashtar demanded as his fleet arrived at empty space. "The humans should be here. Why do I see nothing but stars?" His sensor operator's voice shook with confusion. "Great Emperor, long-range scanners detect nothing. It is as if the humans have vanished." That was when Captain Santa's voice filled every communication channel in the HFY fleet. "War Emperor Vashtar, this is Captain Santos of the Human Expeditionary Force. You are surrounded. Your fleet is trapped between our forces and a gravity. Well, that will prevent escape. Surrender immediately, or face the consequences of engaging a species that has spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of warfare." Vashtar spun around to look at his displays. Impossible shapes appeared on his sensors as human ships decloaked around his fleet. They had been maneuvered into a three-dimensional trap that used the system's gravity fields to limit their movement. "Options impossible." He roared. "No one has ever surrounded a HFY fleet." "Emperor," Admiral Craigthon said quietly, "I believe we have made a serious error in judgment." The HFY response was predictable. They attacked with all the fury and power that had conquered 60 worlds. They charged forward in massive formations, their weapons blazing, their warriors screaming battle cries that had terrified countless enemies. But the humans were not like their previous enemies. They did not panic or break formation. They did not fight with honor or follow predictable patterns. They fought like the apex predators they were, using every advantage their dangerous world had taught them. The battle became a demonstration of why Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world. The humans moved in 3 dimensions, using the gravity wells and asteroid fields as tactical advantages. They coordinated their attacks with precision that suggested they had rehearsed this exact scenario. Their weapons found weak points in HFY armor that the enemy did not know they had. Most importantly, they fought like beings who understood that survival sometimes required doing terrible things to terrible people. War Emperor Vashtar watched his mighty fleet being systematically dismantled by an enemy half its size. Ships that had conquered worlds were disabled with surgical precision. Warriors who had never known defeat found themselves outmaneuvered by beings who treated warfare like a science. How? He whispered as his own flagship's weapons fell silent. How are they doing this? Admiral Craigthan, wounded but still conscious, gave his emperor the answer that would haunt the Kefir for generations. Great Emperor, I believe we have finally met our masters. The Third Battle Fleet, pride of the Kefir Empire, surrendered after losing half its ships and most of its weapons. The humans had not just won a battle. They had shattered the myth of Kefir invincibility and shown the galaxy what happened when Deathworlders went to war. The destruction of the Third Battle Fleet sent shockwaves through the galaxy. News traveled faster than light across the quantum communication networks, reaching every corner of civilized space. The mighty Kefir Empire, conquerors of 60 worlds, had been defeated by a species no one had heard of 6 months ago. On council worlds, beings celebrated cautiously. They were grateful for their salvation, but deeply troubled by the methods used to achieve it. On Kefir worlds, confusion and fear replaced the confidence that had driven their expansion for decades. Commander Chun stood in the command center of the human flagship, watching as the last Kefir ships were secured. Around her, human soldiers worked with the same efficient calm they had shown throughout the battle. No celebration, no boasting, just professional satisfaction at a job well done. Status report, she requested. All Kefir vessels disabled and secured, reported Lieutenant Martinez. Casualty count, 43 Kefir dead, over 2,000 wounded. Human casualties, 0 dead, 7 minor injuries. Flight Commander Theises, who had observed the entire battle from the human command ship, struggled to understand what she had witnessed. Commander Chun, how is such a result possible? They outnumbered you 10-1. Chun looked at the butterfly-like alien with patient eyes. Flight Commander, numbers matter less than training and tactics. The Kefir fought like they always fought, using the same strategies that worked against species who did not know how to fight back. We fought like humans. What does that mean? It means we adapted, Chen explained. We used their expectations against them. We fought the battle they did not expect in ways they could not counter. That is what my species learned from living on a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. The immediate problem was what to do with 50,000 captured Kefir warriors. The Council had no experience with prisoners of war on such a scale. Their traditional approach was to invite defeated enemies to participate in peace talks and cultural exchange programs. Chun had different ideas. We need to establish detention facilities, she told Ambassador Xylin during their conference call. Separate the leaders from the followers. Begin processing them for war crimes trials. War crimes trials? Xylin's crystalline form flickered with confusion. We do not understand this concept. Ambassador, the Kefir have committed acts that violate every standard of civilized behavior. They have killed millions of civilians, enslaved entire populations, and used biological weapons against non-combatants. These are crimes that demand justice. Dr. Kitar joined the conversation from his laboratory. Commander Chun, our traditional approach is to seek forgiveness and reconciliation. We believe that understanding leads to peace. Doctor, Chun replied, understanding is important. But some actions cannot be forgiven without consequences. The Kefir must face justice for what they have done, or they will simply do it again when they think they can get away with it. The concept of transitional justice was completely foreign to the Council species. They had never needed courts designed to handle mass atrocities or systems to rebuild societies torn apart by war. The humans, unfortunately, had extensive experience. With both, Chun established what she called aggressive diplomacy. Kefir commanders found themselves facing a choice: negotiate in good faith or face trial for war crimes. The negotiations themselves revealed another aspect of human nature that surprised the Council species. War Emperor Vashtar sat in a human detention facility that was better equipped than most Kethver military bases. He had expected torture, execution, or slavery. Instead, he received medical care, adequate food, and visits from something the humans called a legal representative. "I do not understand your people," he told Commander Chun during one of their meetings. "You fight with a savagery that exceeds our own, yet you treat defeated enemies with consideration we would never show." Chun studied the massive alien warrior across the metal table. "War Emperor, we have learned that the purpose of warfare is to achieve peace. Revenge feels good in the moment, but it does not solve problems. It just creates new ones. You could have destroyed my entire fleet. You could have killed every warrior under my command. Why did you not? Because dead enemies cannot learn from their mistakes," Chun replied. "Dead enemies cannot help rebuild what they destroyed. Dead enemies cannot teach their children to choose different paths." The conversation continued for hours. Vashtar, who had built his life around the principle that might made right, found himself confronting concepts he had never considered. The humans spoke of proportional response, of rules that applied even in warfare, of responsibilities that came with power. "Your species confuses me," he admitted finally. "You are more dangerous than any enemy I have faced, yet you speak of mercy and justice." "War Emperor," Chun said, "we became dangerous because we had to. Our world taught us that survival required strength. But we also learned that strength without wisdom leads to destruction. We fought so many wars on our own planet that we nearly destroyed ourselves several times. We learned the hard way that winning a war means nothing if you lose the peace that follows." The peace negotiations took place on Harmony Station with representatives from all affected species. The humans insisted on comprehensive terms that addressed not just the immediate conflict, but the underlying causes of Kethver aggression. The Kethver Empire will return all conquered territories to their original inhabitants, Chun announced to the assembled delegates. They will pay reparations for damages caused by their expansion. They will participate in cultural exchange programs designed to promote understanding between species. War Emperor Vashtar, now wearing simple clothing instead of his armor, stood to address the assembly. "The Kethver Empire accepts these terms. We have learned that there are consequences to our actions that we never considered." He looked directly at Commander Chun. "The humans have shown us that true strength is not the ability to destroy your enemies, but the wisdom to know when destruction is necessary and when mercy serves a greater purpose." The formal signing ceremony took place in the Council's Great Hall. Representatives from dozens of species watched as the most powerful military empire in the galaxy signed a peace treaty with beings they had never heard of a year before. Ambassador Xiaolin addressed the assembly. "We called for peacekeepers, and the universe sent us teachers. The humans have shown us that sometimes the greatest mercy is the capacity for decisive action. They have reminded us that peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice." As the human fleet prepared to return to Earth, they left behind a galaxy forever changed. The humans established training academies on 12 worlds, teaching alien species the principles of defensive warfare and conflict resolution. Not to make them more warlike, but to make them capable of defending the peace they cherished. Flight Commander Visas visited Commander Chun before the humans departed. "Commander, will your people return if we need help again?" Chun smiled. "Flight Commander, we hope you will never need our help again, but if you do, Earth will answer the call. That is what peacekeepers do." The human ships departed as efficiently as they had arrived, leaving behind a galaxy that understood something it had forgotten. Peace was not guaranteed by good intentions alone. Sometimes it required the willingness to fight for it. The Kethver Empire began the long process of reconstruction and reconciliation. Former enemies worked together to rebuild destroyed worlds. Children who had been taught that strength meant domination learned new lessons about strength meaning protection. Years later, when other threats arose in distant parts of the galaxy, the call would go out again. Send for the humans. And Earth would respond as it always did, with beings who understood that the greatest warriors were those who fought for peace, not conquest. The galaxy had learned that the best guardians of peace were those who understood the true cost of war. The humans had answered the call for peacekeepers by proving that sometimes the most effective diplomacy came from the barrel of a gun held by someone wise enough to know when not to pull the trigger.